TSB, a talk sport business, and it's always a topic of conversation. Property. People living in Dubai have often criticised landlords who are changing the rules to evict tenants only to then re-rent homes at far higher prices. The practice has become common due to a surge in rental sales since the end of the pandemic, and the Dubai government regulations require landlords to serve an eviction notice of 12 months and then either move in themselves or sell the property. And once they have evicted a tenant, they are forbidden from making the property available for rent for at least 2 years. However, some tenants have found their landlords advertising the same property for as much as twice what they want to pay. Dubai Hills and Damac Hills, where rents were quite low during the pandemic, many landlords are now looking for 50% more from tenants. Neil, we'll get more details about this. Joining us is the head of real estate investment and development from Prime Capital Real Estate. Tahir Majithia is joining us. Thanks for your time this afternoon on Talk 100.3.
Hi, how are you?
Doing very well.
Great.
Right.
Yes.
Tahir, so first up, we've been reading these reports where landlords have been, trying to bend rules to evict current tenants so they can get more from newer tenants. Is this legal? Is this right? Is this within the right of the landlord, or it's absolutely wrong?
I mean, see, if the landlord evicts the tenant to sell the property or use it himself, he has that right.
Okay.
But what is happening is, obviously, there are times when the landlord sees the old rent and the new rent, and there's a difference of sometimes 100% or even more. Obviously, then, they get a little greedy and they serve an eviction notice on the basis that they want to sell or they want to use themselves. And sometimes that doesn't really happen. Once the tenant has vacated, after a few days or a few weeks, you see that property comes online again to rent, and they rent it at a new rent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really the right way to do it. But yes, I mean, there are some people who've used that way, and that's the reason the Dubai Land Department is also revising the rental index and putting a rating system so that the rents, because sometimes, look, from a landlord's perspective, if someone is paying less than half of what the current rent is, the landlord feels that I should be getting much more. And that's the reason the Dubai Land Department is even trying to change that system.
Right. No, I understand. With the change in the system, what all things will be considered as far as the change are concerned?
I mean, obviously, what the Dubai Land Department also is trying to do is to make sure that the rental index gets revised as per the current market rent. So it's fair for the landlord and the tenant both.
Okay.
So that is what, even the Dubai Land Department would try to achieve, that it's a fair thing for the landlord as well as the tenant, that it's, a tenant is not really underpaying and the landlord is not really overcharging.
Yeah, when it comes to a situation like this, I can understand landlords if they've got a tenant in there and then they realise the market has increased and they can get more money. But when it comes to someone who may be evicted by a tenant and then they see their apartment re-advertised, what is the process? Where can they go to perhaps lodge a complaint and have any of those complaints that have been lodged been successful?
It's very difficult to say how many of these complaints have been successful, but they need to go to RERA to lodge a complaint. They need to go to the Rental Dispute Center to raise the complaint that, listen, I evicted based on the landlord wanted to use himself or wanted to sell, but there's another tenant. But, what also happens is that in all practicality, once a tenant has evicted, right, probably he's moved on to another space, seen some other place, and not many times they even know this. But if this is happened, you could go to the Rental Dispute Center.
Yeah, because, I mean, it is a wrongful eviction, if one could use this term, right? In which case, there should be a considerable amount of, support that should come to the tenant as well, because, hey, it's not very easy to find apartments right now, and that too within your budget, and especially if you're a new tenant, right? So currently, if I'm paying X, and if I'm pushed out of my current apartment, I'll all of a sudden will have to pay at least 20 to 30% more than what I'm paying in a new apartment. Right. So that is kind of unfair to a tenant who's willing to continue his tenancy contract.
Yeah, that is there. But, that's why, the rental index is also being revised so that situation doesn't happen. Because, see, we are thinking from a tenant's perspective, which we also need to think from a landlord's perspective, that a landlord, say, for example, a place was rented at 100,000, but today he can get 200,000 for it.
Right.
Now, what happens is sometimes with the rental index calculator, when you put, your old rent, you're probably entitled only, say, to 105,000 as new rent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also from a landlord's point of view, is, he's losing that 100,000 a year.
Right.
So, to be fair, I believe once the rental calculator is adjusted with the current market rents, I think that will balance out both the sides.
Yeah, I mean, our hearts obviously will go out with the tenant, because we are a tenant ourselves.
Exactly.
Unless Kitch and I go and buy a property at the Palm,
Yeah.
we'll always be supportive of the tenant.
we need to be. See, the things, the rules and regulations are actually quite favorable to both. Okay, and they're very fair, especially in Dubai with the DLD and the RERA. The Rental Dispute Center has very fair rules, and they favor both. They're very fair for both. And I think they will remain that way. But yes, there are a lot of landlords who are serving eviction notices just so that they get their property out. See, there are some cases where landlords have genuinely also, given notices to sell the property. And sometimes it happens that, they change their mind, or maybe they decide, oh, listen, I want to use it myself. That cases are, it's not that everybody is like that. There are genuine cases as well.
Right. No, it makes sense. I mean, in which case one just needs to be a little bit more careful, a little bit more aware, and probably keep their eyes and ears open in this market.
Exactly.
When it comes to this situation, as we discussed, rent control limits the amount a landlord can charge a sitting tenant to between 5 and 20% a year. If you're in a situation where you're paying 100,000 dirhams a year and the landlord wants to put it up to 125 outside that 20% cap, what's the process a tenant should go through?
So look, if the landlord is asking for an unreasonable demand, which is not as per the rental calculator, what the tenant needs to do is he needs to go to the Rental Dispute Center and open a case where he will submit all his documents and say that, listen, this was my existing rent. As for the calculator, this is what the new rent should be. And, the court would usually give a judgment that, okay, this should be the new rent for the coming year. And then the landlord obviously has to accept that.
It's fair.
It's not a very complicated. No, look, it's not a very complicated process. If you go to the Rental Dispute Center, it doesn't take much time, and the judgment also comes in literally in a week's time.
Wow, that's okay. So when it goes down to that, the Dubai Rental Dispute Centre, what is the process? Is the website the best place to contact?
I mean, there are multiple typing centers where you can go and open a Ijari case, where you can go and you can tell them, listen, these are my documents, this is my Ijari, this is what I was paying, and the landlord is asking for unreasonable rent, and they do it for you. Okay. And it's, because I have also personally handled such things, it's not so difficult. It's only thing is what happens is a lot of times tenants are scared and they are misinformed. So because of that, they tend to lose, or they tend to, feel scared, and they feel, oh, my landlord will remove me from the house. All of a sudden I'll have to leave the house, and they agree to it. So, and many times because, some landlords, they think that, okay, the tenant might not know the rules and regulations properly, and they try to, exploit the situation. So I would always say that, listen, there is a proper law protecting you. You follow it, and that'll help you.
Well, wonderful. I think that's great advice. Tahir, thank you very much for sharing your insights. It's obviously a very juicy topic of conversation at the moment, given so many areas are seeing rental increases, and people just want to know the law and where they stand. So Tahir Majithia, the Real Estate Investment and Development Advisor from Prime Capital Real Estates, thanks for your time this afternoon.
Most welcome.
There we go. So that idea that to buy a rental dispute centre, all you have to do is Google it and you'll be able to find wherever the closest rental dispute centre is. And that's the place you should go to if you feel like, something really isn't working with you, something, and isn't happening and you're not being treated within the rules of the law.
Absolutely, because most of the times, more often than not, you will be, within the rights to do everything that is correct. Because, hey, like in my case, the management agency sent send me an email 3 months back saying that, hey, you need to confirm by the end of October if you want to continue, because my tenancy contract comes up for renewal end of December. They sent me a mail, I guess in August or something, saying that, hey, you have to confirm by end of October if you want to continue. Otherwise, we will go ahead and rent it out, and your contract will get terminated. They also sent me a revised rental amount, which I was okay with because it was a marginal increase, knowing the fact that, hey, property prices are increasing crazily. I was okay with that, and I sent an email saying that, I will continue. How do I proceed? What is the next step? They said, no problem. Once this is your confirmation of continuation, just before your tenancy contract comes to an end, just come in with the checks and we'll sign the paperwork and proceed.
0586 861003 is the telephone number. If you've had an issue with a rental dispute and you want to share your thoughts, you can let us know. 0586 861003.